The room went quiet, only for a second. Then my son said it again, louder. "You're not needed." My name is Thomas Reed. I'm 62 years old. This is the night my own son tried to cut me out of his life at his birthday party, and how the gift I brought started a slow turn he didn't see coming. Sit back and let me tell you how my son told me I wasn't needed, and how I answered with proof that took the smile off his face. Before we get too far, don't forget to subscribe and let me know where you're listening from. The candles threw warm light over the dining room. Balloons bumped the ceiling. Guests held their phones up. The cake said, "Happy 35, Evan." I stood near the end of the long table with a small box in my hands. The paper was plain. Brown string tied it shut. It didn't look like much. No bow, no shine. Evan held a glass like a trophy. His friends stood behind him, loud and loose. His wife, Kayla, had a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Someone shouted, "Speech!" and he acted like the king of a small land. He looked right at me. "Dad," he said, and paused so people would look at me too. "Thank you for coming, but we talked about this." He raised the glass a little higher. "You're not needed." People laughed because they didn't know what else to do. A few looked down. A cousin took a slow drink of soda and stared at the floor. The band in the corner hit a wrong note and then drifted into a new song like nothing had happened. I stood still. The box felt heavy in my hands. I didn't set it down. I didn't step forward. I didn't say a thing. Evan turned back to the crowd. "Tonight is about the future," he said. "Fresh ideas, clean starts." He winked at his friends. A friend with a tight haircut slapped him on the back. "Out with the old," Evan said, and held his glass up again. He wanted a scene. I gave him none. Kayla forced a laugh and tugged his sleeve. "Cut the cake," she said under her breath. He picked up the knife and made a big show of it, dragging the blade too slow, letting the frosting bunch at the edge like snow off a plow. The guests cheered. I watched the knife shine in the light. I thought about tools, and how some hands make good cuts, and some use them to do harm. A little boy ran past me, nearly knocked into my knees. He wore a paper hat and a grin. His mother pulled him back and said sorry without meeting my eyes. I nodded. My heart was steady. My hands were steady. The box was steady. "Open gifts," someone shouted. A pile of boxes sat on a side table, glossy boughs, bright paper. My brown box looked wrong there, like a brick in a bowl of candy. Evan ripped through 3 presents fast: watch band, bottle, shoes. He laughed loud at each one and looked around to see who was watching him laugh. Kayla lifted my box from the table and held it up by the string. "This one." Her voice was careful. She looked at me. I shook my head once and kept my lips closed. "Not yet." Evan took it from her hand and weighed it like a scale. "This from Dad," he said. "Heavy. Hope it's not more. Advice." His friends howled like he had told a real joke. He reached for the string. I could see the veins in his hand, blue lines under smooth skin. He liked to lift weights and tell people about it. He liked to stand tall in a room and fill it with his voice. I stepped forward 1 pace. "Later," I said, calm and clear, "when it's quiet." That one word, quiet, made him blink. He let the box hang from his fingers for a second, then he set it back on the table with 2 fingers like it was dirty. "Later," he said, tossing the word back at me. "If we're not all too busy with the future." Kayla said, "Evan." It was soft, but he heard it. He changed the subject fast, cut another slice, handed it to a friend, and kept the party moving. The music rose. The laughter rose. Phones went up. I stepped back into the edge of the room where the light was softer and the floor felt cooler under my shoes. I let the sound wash past me and thought about the last year, about how we got to this room. It didn't start here, it started slow. A missed call returned too late, a visit cut short. Words like "old school" said with a grin that wasn't kind. He used to ask for help. Then he started telling me what I didn't know. I helped him open his store 2 years ago, not big, not fancy, a small sign on a street that smelled like fresh paint and pizza grease. I stood on a ladder and hung the letters with tired hands. He smiled then. He hugged me then. "Couldn't do this without you," he said. That was before his friends came. Before the long nights out. Before the posts online where he called himself self-made and used words like grind and empire. He stopped coming by on Sundays. He stopped asking me how to fix a hinge or a pipe or a stuck window. He hired a man with a tool belt and a short temper. He called me to tell me the contractor laughed at the way I fixed the old deck. "We had to rip that out, Dad," he said. "You don't know how they do it now." He meant I don't know. He meant you're not needed. He just hadn't said it out loud yet. One day he came by my house and stood in my kitchen and said, "You can leave me the shed keys. I'll be using it for a while." Not can I, not would it be okay, but you can. His way. He used my shed to store extra boxes for his shop. For a while. He left the lock open twice. Rain got in. I found a box of my late wife's books, soft with damp. He shrugged. "It's old stuff, Dad." That was the day I started keeping things. I don't mean anger. I mean paper. I mean simple notes. I saved receipts. I saved texts. I saved a flyer he printed that used a photo I took and didn't ask about. I saved a message where he promised to pay me back by spring. I saved a photo of a check that never came. Little things. Small, quiet things. It didn't feel like a plan then. It felt like a man tying knots in a rope so his hands could grip when the pull came. In the party room, a man in a shiny suit bumped my shoulder and didn't say sorry. He lifted his phone and filmed Kayla feeding Evan a bite of cake. Frosting smeared his lip. Guests howled. He liked the noise. He always had. A balloon popped in the corner. The sound was quick and bright. A child cried. The band laughed. The drummer twirled his sticks like he was still in school. Evan's friend with the tight haircut wandered over. "So, Mr. Reed," he said, "you proud of the kid?" He looked me up and down like a suit in a store checking fit. "I've always been proud of my son," I said. "Even now?" He jerked his chin toward Evan. "Different level, right? Whole new game." He snapped his fingers like he was calling a dog. "Man's got momentum." I nodded. "Momentum is easy downhill," I said. "We'll see him on the climb." The friend smirked and turned away. He didn't like that line. Most men like it better when you clap. Kayla came by and stood close to me, close enough that no one else could hear. "I told him the line was too far," she whispered, eyes on the floor. "I told him not to say it." "It's done," I said. She nodded, bit her lip, and moved away when Evan called her name. Her shoes clicked fast. He handed her a drink and draped an arm over her shoulder like a jacket. She looked up at him with a smile I knew she learned last year, the kind that hides in hopes. "Dad, you good?" A voice behind me. My brother, Paul. He has a slow walk and a softer voice. He looked at the small box on the table and then at my face. "I'm fine," I said. "You want me to say something?" "No," I said, "not tonight." He nodded. He has known me since I had baby teeth. He didn't push. After cake, the party slid into that loose middle. People drifted. Some danced. Some checked their phones. The kids found the balloons and chased them across the floor with their hands. I stepped out to the hall for a breath. The air was cooler there, faint with the clean smell of the building. My hands were dry. My heart had found a slow, even beat. The venue manager walked by with a clipboard. She saw me and gave a small smile. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She looked past me into the room. "I saw what he said," she murmured, not asking. "Sometimes people try to be funny when they are afraid." I nodded once. "Would you do me a favor later?" I asked. "When I ask you, can you quiet the music for a moment? Just a moment." She held my eyes, then nodded. "I can." I went back in. Evan was telling a story about a crazy client and used a voice to make the person sound dumb. People laughed because it's easy to laugh when someone gives you a target. I took a glass of water from a tray and sipped. Cold. Clean. My mouth was dry. The water helped. Kayla's father arrived late and shook Evan's hand too long. They talked about numbers I didn't need to hear. When he saw me, he gave me a nod that hovered between pity and warning. He didn't walk over. He turned and watched the band instead. I found a chair near the wall and sat with my box on my knees. I ran a thumb over the brown paper. The string's not set deep. I had tied it myself. I had wrapped it slow. Inside was weight. Not money, not a trick. Simple weight. A boy with big shoes sat beside me without asking. "Is that a good gift?" he asked. "I think so," I said. He nodded like a man. "I hope it's a dog," he said, and ran away before I could answer. I thought about the day last month when I drove to a store and found the lights off in the afternoon. A note on the door said, "Closed for private event." Inside, through the gap of the blind, I saw a small group with open bottles and loud voices. Evan stood on the counter and told a story about the old days and how he learned to do it better now. He hit his chest with his fist and shouted, "Self-made!" They cheered. I stood on the sidewalk and felt the wind bite my face. I almost knocked. I didn't. I walked to my truck and sat with my hands on the wheel until my heart slowed. That night, I found a bank letter in my mailbox with his name and my address. I don't know how that happens. But it happens. The letter said "past due" in big red type. I called him. He said, "They sent it wrong. Don't worry." He said, "I've got it covered." He said, "You don't get how things work now." He meant you're not needed. He just hadn't said it yet. I kept the letter. I put it with the note from the vendor who called me by mistake and asked me if the check for the opening month ever cleared. I said, "I don't run that store." He said, "Oh." He said too much in that one sound. Back at the party, a cousin climbed on a chair and called for a toast. "To Evan," she shouted, and lifted her glass. "To new days!" People raised glasses and shouted the same two words, because shouting is easier than thinking. I stood, but I didn't lift anything. My hands were full. When the noise dipped, Paul caught my eye and gave a small nod. He had a look that said, "We can go any time." I shook my head. Not yet. A server passed by with a tray of tiny coffee cups. I took one and held it near my face. It smelled like burnt sugar and something bitter. It warmed my hands. Kayla circled back to me when Evan started a loud conversation with the man in the shiny suit. "He'll be like this all night," she said, quiet. "He likes a crowd." "I know," I said. She looked at the box again. Will it make things worse?" Her eyes were tired. She was too young to have that look already. "It will make things clear," I said. "Clear is hard at first. Then, it's simple." She nodded and bit the inside of her cheek to keep her face from moving. "He wasn't always like this," she said. Her eyes shone. "He was soft. You know, he was kind." "He still is," I said. "He just put loud on top of it." She swallowed and stepped away when someone called her name. She pulled her shoulders back and put on the smile again and did her duty as the wife of the man of the hour. A song ended. The room clapped. The band started another. The drummer hit a cymbal too hard and winced at his own hand. I stood, lifted my box, and walked to the side of the stage where the venue manager could see me. She saw me. She lifted a finger. The band leader saw her. The song wound down like a toy you set on the floor and let run. The room didn't notice yet. The noise of voices kept a steady hum. I stepped close to the head table and set my box in front of Evan. "Now," I said, quiet. He looked at the box like it had come back from the grave. "Now?" he said. "Now," I said. The venue manager gave a small signal. The music dipped to a hush, not off, just lower. People looked around when the air changed. You can feel when a room leans. Evan picked up the box by the string and let it swing for a beat, trying to make a joke of it. "All right, old man," he said. "Let's see what we've got. I hope it's not a lecture in a box." "It's not a lecture," I said. He picked at the knot, then pulled harder when it held. He used his teeth and got a laugh for that. The string came loose. He peeled the paper off in 2 long strips and set it aside. A plain shoebox sat there. No brand name, no mark. "Shoes?" someone called. Evan lifted the lid and looked inside. His face changed. not to shock, to confusion first. He reached in and touched the first thing, then the second, then the third. He didn't pull anything out. He looked at me like a man who finds the door he just opened leads to more doors. "What is this?" he said. "Read it," I said. "All of it." The venue manager stepped closer to the band. The room quieted another inch. People watched the way they watch a glass teeter at the edge of a table. Evan reached in and pulled the top item out. A small spiral notebook with his name written on the cover in his own hand. He flipped it open. He saw the first date. He saw the list of what I gave him last winter and what he promised to return by spring. His mouth moved with no sound. He pulled out the next item. The letter with red words. He looked at the address line. He saw my street. He swallowed. He pulled out the note from the vendor, folded and refolded so many times the creases made a grid. He looked at the signature and the phone number written on the back in my writing. He pulled out a photo of a sign from his store opening with my hand in the corner, holding it straight while he stood on a chair and smiled. He didn't pull out the small flash drive. He didn't need to. He knew what a flash drive looks like when a man sets it in front of you without a word. "Dad," he said, not loud, not king voice, real voice. "We're at a party." "I know," I said. People leaned closer. Someone whispered, "What is it?" And someone else said, "Shh." The air changed like the weather in a second when a cloud shifts over the sun. Evan closed the lid, set the box on the table, and put his palm over it like he could hold it shut. He tried to grin. The grin died. He looked at Kayla. She looked at him and did not try to save him with a smile this time. He took my arm and tried to pull me toward the hall. "Outside," he said. "Inside," I said. He let go like my sleeve burned. He looked at the crowd and then back at me. He stepped onto the chair. "Everybody," he called. Too bright, too loud. "Sorry about that." The old man brought a scrapbook. He thought that would make a laugh. It didn't. The venue manager touched the band leader's shoulder. He lifted his hands off the keys. The last note hung in the air and then fell in a short sigh. I did not reach for the mic. I did not call for a toast. I did not speak to the room. I looked at my son in the face he had as a boy when he broke a neighbor's window and told me the ball did it all by itself. He had that face now, grown and sharp and scared. He put the box under the tablecloth as if that would undo it. He waited for the room to roar back to life. It didn't. Kayla stood. She pressed her hand flat on the table as if to keep herself steady. "Open it," she said to him, soft but clear. "If it's nothing, open it." He didn't move. I lifted my glass of water and took a slow drink. The glass left a ring on the white cloth, a small round mark that would fade, then be gone. Some marks do, some do not. Evan tried again to grin. He nodded at the band. "Play something," he said, thin. The bandleader looked at the manager. She gave a small shake of her head. The band stayed still. "Dad," Evan said again, and his voice broke on the edge of the word. "Read it," I said. He did not. Not there. Not then. He picked up the box, tucked it under his arm, and said, "Excuse me," into air that didn't ask. He moved fast to the side hall. His friends watched him go and did not follow. Kayla stayed. She sat down. She folded her hands in her lap and stared at the tablecloth as if it held a map. Paul appeared at my shoulder. "You want me to go with him?" he asked. "No," I said. "He needs to be alone for a minute." The venue manager stepped up to the small mic. "We're going to take a short break," she said. Her voice was smooth, warm, not afraid. "Please enjoy some coffee. We'll be right back." People began to murmur. Cups clinked. Spoons stirred. No one laughed. A child asked, "What happened?" The mother said, "Shh," and hugged him close. I walked to the hall and stood in the doorway. Evan was 10 steps down, back against the wall, box at his feet, hands in his hair. He looked up when he heard me. The mask was gone. The boy was back. The man stood beside the boy and didn't know which way to turn. "Why did you bring that?" he asked. "So you would stop saying a thing that isn't true," I said. "So you would stop telling the world I'm not needed when you've needed me every step and called it something else." He slid down the wall and sat on the floor. He rubbed his eyes with the heels of his hands. I was trying to look big, he said. I wanted them to think I did it alone. I know, I said. He took a breath like a man coming up from deep water. I can pay you back, he said. But he said it like a person says a word they don't believe. I kept what matters, I said. He looked at the box. He kicked it lightly like a bad dog. You kept everything. I kept enough, I said. He nodded, slow. He picked up the box and held it to his chest like he held his football in high school when he learned to tuck and run. Don't do this here, he said. The room is already quiet, I said. It wasn't me who did that. He swallowed and stood. He wiped his palms on his pants. He looked older than he did a half hour ago. He looked closer to my age than his own. Okay, he said. It sounded like a boy answering a coach. He walked back into the room with the box in both hands like a fragile thing. He set it on the table. He reached in and pulled out the spiral again. He placed it flat where everyone could see it. He pulled out the red letter, the vendor note, the photo of the sign. He set the flash drive beside them with 2 fingers. He didn't say a word. He didn't make a speech. He just stood there and breathed. The room held its breath with him. I did not move. I did not help him. I let him face the small pile of truth he had not wanted to see until now. He placed both hands on the table edge and stared at the box. The veins in his hands stood out again, blue lines under tired skin. Kayla stood and came to his side. She put her hand over his. He didn't pull away. Coffee? The manager asked in a voice that was a bridge over a gap. People took cups. People found seats. The band stayed still. The night took a long, slow turn that most never feel when they spend their time laughing. I stepped back and found my chair by the wall. I sat. I felt my pulse in my fingers. It was slow. It was strong. The brown paper from the box lay in 2 strips on the table. Bent, used, honest. Evan looked at me. The look wasn't a plea, and it wasn't anger. It was a line from him to me that said, I see it now, and I don't know what to do with what I see. I held his eyes and did not nod and did not shake my head. I let the line hold. A phone buzzed on the table. Someone silenced it quick. The sound felt rude in the new air. In my pocket I had more, not to hurt him, to hold him to truth, short notes. A short clip of his voice last spring saying, I'll pay you by May, and then laughing when he thought I couldn't hear. A list of what I fixed at his house with dates written beside each item in clear numbers. None of it needed law words. None of it needed lectures. It was just plain life. I didn't reach for any of it. Not yet. For the first time all night, Evan didn't want the room. He just wanted a chair that didn't move when he reached for it. He found one. He sat, he looked at Kayla. She looked back. Her eyes were wet, but the wet wasn't fear now. It was relief and heat, and a small fire that might keep going when the air is kind. Paul brought me a cup of coffee and set it on the table next to me without a word. He stood with his hand on the back of my chair, a simple touch, a small shade. The band leader cleared his throat. He looked at the manager. She gave a slow nod. He played a low, soft run on the keys. It was not a party song. It sounded like a door closing gentle and a window opening a crack. I watched my son look at what he had put on the table. I watched him hold his own cheeks in his hands for a second and breathe out slow. I watched my family learn what quiet can do to a man who lives by noise. And I waited, because the night wasn't done. The box had been opened, but the gift was still wrapped inside him. He'd have to decide whether to keep it or return it. Either way, the room had changed. The night stretched. People drifted home. They left with slow steps and sideways glances and tight lips. No one came to slap Evan's back now. No one asked for a selfie. A few shook Kayla's hand and squeezed it. A friend in the tight haircut shook his head like he'd been lied to by a mirror. At the end, when the room held only a few and the band packed their cases, Evan came to me. He didn't look up. He stared at the box again like it was a map he couldn't read. "Can you come by the store tomorrow?" he asked. "Early." "Early is best," I said. He nodded and carried the box like a man carries something that belongs to him and hurts him at the same time. Kayla came behind him, slower. "Thank you," she said to me, for not shouting. "Noise is easy," I said. "Quiet takes work." She smiled a small, real smile. "We will try." I walked out into the cool night. The air smelled like rain that might come. The streetlights hummed a thin sound. Balloons from the party were tied to the steps, bobbing like patient birds. I got in my truck. I sat with my hands on the wheel like I had that day on the street outside his store. My hands looked older in the dash light. They felt strong anyway. I drove home slow. The road was dark and simple. The box had done its first job. The rest would need a different kind of tool. The next morning, before the sun warmed the trees, I stood at the door of his shop. He was inside with the curtains half down. He opened the door and didn't meet my eyes at first. The floor smelled like cleaner. The counter was neat. He had put too much care into the picture. That meant there was mess somewhere else. We sat on 2 stools by the window. He pushed the box toward me like a man pushes food he can't eat anymore. "I read it all," he said, "twice." I waited. "I lied to you," he said. "I lied to them." He pointed at the shelves, at the street, at the sky. He laughed once without humor. "To me, too." "You can tell the truth now," I said. He nodded. "I will." He opened the box and held up the flash drive. "What's on this?" "Your voice," I said. "You telling me things you didn't keep." He looked at it like it could burn. "Do you plan to play it? Do you plan to fix it?" He swallowed. "Yes," he said, and his voice broke again and then landed steady. "I want to." "Then the room will not need to hear it," I said. "If you lie again, the room will hear." He nodded again, a man saying a vow in small words. A key scraped in the back door. Kayla came in with a paper bag and a face set for work. She set coffee on the counter and stood beside him, close but not clinging. He reached for her hand and she gave it. They stood like that in their own small weather, and I let them stand. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a folded paper of my own, not a law paper, a simple list, no fancy words. Line 1, pay back what is owed. Line 2, say it out loud. Line 3, stop making rooms laugh at the wrong things. Line 4, call your mother's sister, she misses you. Line 5, return my late wife's books. Dry, don't bend the pages. He took the list and read it. He smiled at the last line in a sad, fond way. "The books," he said. "I'm sorry about the books." "I know," I said. He set the list on the counter and placed his palm flat on it. "I'll start here," he said. "Start," I said. He looked up. "Dad?" "Yes." "Thank you for coming to the party." He laughed at himself when he said it and wiped his face with the back of his hand. "I didn't deserve that." "It's not about deserve," I said. "It's about show up." He nodded again like a man learning a new word. The bell on the door chimed. The first customer of the day walked in, looked at the 3 of us, and smiled. Because people smile when there's a mystery, and they don't know it yet. Evan greeted him in a small voice that found its shape as he spoke. The man bought something simple. Evan rang it up. He didn't tell a big story about himself. He said thank you like he meant it. I left them there in the new light. The street smelled like coffee and warm bread. A bus rolled by and sighed. A dog pulled its owner toward a tree with purpose. The world kept going. The box had started a slow, hard thing. Not a trick, not a stunt, a turn. I drove home. The house was quiet, and it felt like a friend again, not a waiting room. I set my keys in the bowl by the door. They made a small metal sound. I sat at the table with a cup of tea and the morning sun on the wood and thought about rooms and chairs and the way a word like needed can be broken and then mended. I did not feel like a hero. I felt like a man who tied some knots in a rope and held on. The climb was his now. I would stand below with the line in my hands. When he slipped, I would not let him fall far. When he pulled, I would match him inch for inch. The box sat on his counter. The papers sat under his palm. The day sat in front of us like a road you can walk if you want to. And I knew we were not done. The party had ended. The noise had faded. The gift had reached the table. The next move would show if he had learned anything at all. Days passed without drama. That was the strange part. No storm, no doors slamming, just small sounds and small choices that added up. I swept the porch. The broom bristles whispered over the boards. The sun slid along the fence, slow and warm. I thought about my hands on that small box. I thought about Evan's face when the noise left the room like air from a balloon. I thought about the way he said early is best, and how some boys only learn in the morning after a hard night. He kept his word for 3 days. He called vendors. He returned 2 boxes that had been sitting unpaid for months. He brought a plastic tub with my wife's books, dry and neat, wrapped in clean towels. He set it on my floor like an offering. He did not look for thanks, so I gave him none. I only said, "Good." And he nodded like a worker at a job site and went back to the truck for another load. On the 4th day, the friend with the tight haircut showed up at the store again. I saw him through the window as I walked by with a bag of nails from the hardware shop. He leaned on the counter and spoke into Evan's ear like a snake trying to teach breathing. Evan laughed, the fake laugh he used at bars. Kayla watched with her arms folded across her chest. She looked at the floor. The friend looked at me through the glass and held my eyes for a second too long, then smiled like a man showing teeth. I opened the door. The bell chimed. The store smelled like cardboard and lemon cleaner. Evan straightened. "Dad," he said, too bright. "We're planning a launch. New line, new story. Big push Friday night." I said nothing. The friend stuck out his hand. "Ty," he said, "we met at the party, kind of." "We did," I said. He squeezed too hard. Like that proved his bones were better than mine. "We're gonna reposition the brand," he said. "Tell it right." "How will you tell it?" I asked. He grinned, too many teeth at once. "Young energy, no dead weight." He said it without blinking. Evan flinched. Ty saw it and shrugged, as if to say, "I only speak truth." Evan rubbed the back of his neck. "We're doing a live," he said. "Stream, music, giveaways. You should stop by." The words tasted strange in his mouth, even as he said them. Kayla watched me. She shook her head once, a tiny no, as if she wanted to spare me something she knew was coming. "I'll be outside," I said. "I'll listen." Ty laughed. "The street needs to hear us anyway." I left with my nails. The day was fair. A kid rode past me on a bike with a baseball card in his spokes. It made a soft clack. I loved that sound when I was 10. I still did. That afternoon, a vendor called my phone. "Mr. Reed," he said, voice careful. "I found your number on an old work order. I need to ask, do you still stand behind the account?" "Evan stands behind it," I said. He hesitated. "He said you were out." "He says many things," I said. "Send me the list, not the stories, the numbers." He sent a fax to my old machine because that's what he had. The paper came out warm and smelling like dust. Simple lines. Small totals that had become big totals by sitting alone too long. I marked each one with a pencil and a steady hand. After dinner, I drove to the store again and parked across the street. Lights turned the windows into a stage. People stood shoulder to shoulder, phones up, music thumping. The air smelled like hot asphalt and spicy food from the truck on the corner. Ty held a mic and shouted about hustle and grind. He said we built 5 times in 2 minutes. He never said we owe. Evan took the mic and told the crowd he had done it all from zero. He used the word empire. He used the word born for this. He used the word old once, and the crowd hooted, the way a crowd will when you tell them where to point their laugh. He did not name me, but he didn't have to. People looked at the window and then looked away when they saw me. That's how you know a line is being drawn, even when no one says the word. I did not go in. I did not leave. I stood with my hands in my pockets and counted the beats between songs. At the end of one song, Ty said, "We don't need the past," and the room cheered like a wave hitting a wall. Evan smiled hard. His face twitched at the edges. Kayla stood near the back with her arms tight across her chest again. She wasn't smiling now. When the night died down, Evan came out alone and saw me across the street. He started to cross, then stopped at the white line like a dog who knows he shouldn't leave the yard. He lifted a hand. It hung there. He let it drop. He went back inside. I went home and made tea and wrote one line on a small card. The room still loves noise. Then I put the card with my other cards and let the kettle click itself off. In the morning, I swept the kitchen. A leaf had crept in under the door again. It clung to the broom like a small, stubborn hand. I shook it free and carried it outside and set it in the bin. Sometimes it is that simple. Often it is not. A letter came that afternoon from the landlord of Evan's building. He sent it to me because 12 months ago, when a boy asked his father to help him look solid on paper, a father signed his name on a line. It said notice. It said noise complaints. It said rent behind 2 weeks. It said call. I called. The landlord met me at the building and brought a ring of keys the size of a grapefruit. He had the lined face of a kind man who had learned to be firm. "I don't want trouble," he said. "Neither do I said. He shifted his weight. The young man said, "You are stepping back." "I stepped to the side," I said. I did not walk away. We stood in the lobby that smelled like bleach and dust. He scratched his temple and looked at my shoes and decided I wasn't a problem. "Late is late," he said, not cruel. "But money is not the only thing late." "I know," I said. "Can you get him here by Friday?" "I can ask," I said. "Ask loud," he said, almost smiling. When I left, I passed Ty coming in. He didn't move to the side, so we touched shoulders. He looked at me like a man looks at a sign written in a language he doesn't care to learn. "Morning," he said. The word had edges. "Morning," I said. Mine did not. He laughed and said, "You'll get used to the new way." He said it as if time belonged to him. I thought, you are borrowing time like a man borrows a coat in summer and forgets it will rain. That night I found Evan at the shop alone. He was counting something that wasn't money. Favors, maybe. He looked tired and young again, which is a bad mix. "You spoke with the landlord?" he asked. "He sent a letter," I said. I set it on the counter, paper on wood. It made that small sound that seems to carry past words. Evan rubbed his forehead. "I'll fix it." "When?" "Friday." "He wants to see you," I said. "In person." He nodded too fast. "Friday," he said again. He stared at the letter like the numbers might change if he looked long enough. The door chimed. Kayla walked in with a bag of groceries. Apples, bread, a jar of sauce. She moved around the counter like a woman in a kitchen built from scratch. He didn't look. She didn't force him to. She saw the letter. She saw my face. She set the apples down and lined them up with care. "I can take the check over," she said. "You shouldn't have to," I said. "I know," she said, and that was all. On Thursday night, Evan called. "Can you come by tomorrow at 9?" he asked. "To sit with me when I talk to the landlord?" "Yes," I said. He paused. "Thanks," he said, soft. He hung up before the thanks could grow into something else. Friday morning came clean. The sky was the color of a new page. The landlord set his big key ring on the counter like a small bell. Evan slid a check across. The landlord looked at the name. He looked at the numbers. He nodded. He picked up the keys. He said, "I don't like noise. You brought quiet. Keep bringing it." He left. The keys clanked on his ring like a promise. Evan leaned on the counter and let out a breath he had been holding for a week. "One," he said. "One," I said. "Dad," he added, "Ty wants to do another live this weekend." "What do you want?" I asked. He looked at the door. He looked at his shoes. "I want to sell things and not lie about it," he said. "Then do that," I said. He nodded. He says we need the show. You need the work, I said. He laughed at that, not to impress anyone, not to hide. He laughed like a man who hears something true, and it hurts and helps at once. He didn't cancel the live. He said he would, but he didn't. That is how it goes with boys who love noise. They say, then they do what the loud friend says. Kumami, the live went on. Ty talked too much, like always. He called me old school into a camera. He asked the crowd to drop laughing emojis. They did. It was a wall of little faces. Evan stood beside him and didn't add to it, which is a start, but he didn't stop it, which is not enough. I watched from the sidewalk again. A couple from the neighborhood stood nearby with a small dog that shivered even though the night was warm. The woman said, "Is that your boy?" I said, "Yes." She said, "He is loud." I said, "He is learning." She nodded and looked at the dog, and we both looked at the window and did not say the next words. That night I wrote on another card, "He still wants a stage." Then I went to sleep with the window open so I could hear the train miles away. It came through at 2 a.m. and sounded like a memory rolling over the tracks. Saturday morning I found a video online of a man on the street outside the shop who said things about me that were not kind. The caption said, "The Dad." Ty had posted it at midnight, after I had gone to bed. He used the same sentence Evan had used at the party. "You're not needed." He added a smile face that did not look like a smile. I saved the video. I did not reply. I wrote on a card, "Keep it." Monday, Kayla came over with a folder and a look that had some fear and some steel in it. She sat at my table and set the folder down. "I made copies," she said, "of what I could find. Orders, returns, messages from Ty on his other account." She slid a paper toward me with a printout of a post I hadn't seen. It was Ty bragging in a small circle of friends about how he could push Evan into any move, and how the old man will fold. He had added a photo of the party cake and wrote, "Didn't even need to spell it right to break him." I read it slow. I pressed my finger on the edge of the paper and felt the fibers give a little. "Thank you," I said. "I couldn't watch it anymore," she said. "He keeps saying he'll stop, then he doesn't. I'm tired of living in a room that laughs." "You don't have to," I said. "I know," she said. She wiped her eyes. "I want him to stop because he chose to, not because you made him." "Me too," I said, "but I will use what I must." She looked at the little stack of cards on my counter, the ones with short lines and dates. "You write like a man building a small wall," she said. "A low one," I said, "just enough to slow the flood." She smiled, a real small smile. "I'm with you," she said. I went to the store that afternoon and found Evan behind the counter alone. He had a broom in his hand and was moving dust from one corner to another. He looked up and saw the folder in my hand, and the broom slowed like the second hand on a tired clock. "What's that?" he asked. "Your house," I said. "Built of paper. You get to live in it or take it apart." He stared at the folder. He did not reach for it. He posted that video. He said, "Voice low." "I saw," I said. "I told him to take it down," he said. "Did he?" I asked. He shook his head. He laughed. "Of course," I said. Evan rubbed the broom handle with his palm until it shone. "I want him out," he said. "But he is the loud one. He brings people." "He brings noise," I said. "Noise is not the same as people." He looked like a boy trying to understand a math problem with only half the numbers. "What do I do?" he asked. I set the folder on the counter. "You invite him tonight," I said. "Here, alone. You say you have something to show him." "What?" he asked. "You show him his own words," I said, "and you say a line. Then you stand still, and you do not blink if he shouts." "What line?" he asked. "You say, 'We're done.' And when he laughs, you point to the door and say, 'Go.' And when he says no, you say, 'Then I will call the landlord. Then I will call the bank. Then I will call the police if you won't leave my store.' You do not need to use the last two. It helps to say them." He swallowed. "I don't want to fight." "Then don't fight," I said. "Stand." He nodded. "Okay," he said. He said it like a man about to lift something heavy. That night, I sat in my truck across the street, with the window cracked so I could hear. The air smelled like rain in the distance. A siren wailed far off, steady and sad. Ty arrived late. He parked crooked and walked like he owned the ground. He went inside without looking around. The talk started quiet, then rose, then dipped, then rose. I heard Evan say, "We're done," and Ty laugh and say, "You can't." I heard Evan say, "Go." Ty said, "Make me." The door was thin. Words leaked through wood. I stepped out of the truck and stood with my hands at my sides. I didn't go in. I waited. Evan said, louder now, "Leave." Ty said, "Old man put you up to this?" and said my name with a small curse. He always needed a villain. He was small, and small men need tall shadows to look bigger. I heard a quiet voice. Kayla. I hadn't seen her go in. "Go," she said. One word. "Steal under cloth." There was a pause, then the bell on the door. Ty came out in a slice and looked at me like he would put his hands on me if I were made of smoke. He said a word I won't repeat. He walked to his car. He slammed the door. He revved the engine. He left with a squeal that made a child cover his ears on the sidewalk. I waited. I did not smile. I did not move. The bell chimed again. Evan stepped out and leaned on the frame like the building had become heavy in the last 5 minutes. "He's gone," he said. "For now," I said. He nodded. He looked at me like a man who is sick and finally asks for water. "Will you come back in?" he asked. "Help me put the shelves right." He always moves them, and I pretend it's good. "I'll come," I said. We moved shelves for an hour. It sounds like nothing. It wasn't. The metal feet scratched the floor. The scent of dust rose. We put heavy things low. We put light things high. It made the room feel true. He swept. I wiped the counter. We didn't talk. We worked. That is its own language. At the end, he set the broom against the wall and stood with both hands flat on the wood, and breathed like a man who had carried something uphill and then set it down. "We'll see if he comes back," he said. "He will," I said. "Noise always tries again." "What do I do then?" "You do this again," I said. "You stand." He nodded. "Okay." The next morning, he texted me a photo of a post he wrote. It said, "We're making changes." He did not use the word "I." He used the word "we" and meant him and Kayla and the shelves and the floor and the truth. It wasn't pretty copy. It was plain. It got fewer hearts than his loud posts. The ones it got were from real names I knew from the street. At noon, the landlord stopped by to say he had heard yelling last night. It was short, he said. I like short. "Me too," I said. He gave a small nod like a man tips his hat without a hat and went back to his keys. That evening, my doorbell rang. Paul stood there with a bag of screws and a grin. "You look lighter," he said. "I moved a shelf," I said. "We'll tell that to the doctor next time," he said, and we laughed, the good kind of laugh that does not need a crowd. On Wednesday, Evan's video from the party started to circulate. Not the one Ty posted, the little clip of his face changing when he opened the box. Someone at the party had filmed it quiet and posted it without tags, just a simple caption, "A man seeing." It spread because it looked like a person growing on camera. Some called it fake. Some called it real. It didn't matter. What mattered was the way the comments under it were soft, not sharp. People said, "I hope he fixes it." People said, "I know that look." On Thursday, Evan came to my house with a small tin. "For the books," he said. "I found the 2 that were still bent. I pressed them flat under the tin for a week." He opened it and showed me the pages. They weren't perfect. They were close. He looked sorry and proud at the same time. He looked like a boy who brought home a bird he had found with a broken wing, fixed with tape and love, and knew the bird would still not fly. He set the books on my table and touched each one like it was alive. We sat on the porch. The sun lay stripes across the floor. Cars slid by with a sound like paper tearing. He said, "Do I have to make a big post? Say sorry to the world?" "You say sorry to the people you hurt," I said. "The world can wait." He nodded. He looked down the street and watched a dog sniff the same tree 3 times. "I'll start with you," he said. "I know," I said. "I heard it." He smiled and then looked away before tears could find his eyes. Friday morning, Ty posted again. He said the old man is controlling him. He added fire emojis like a child. He challenged Evan to a live debate. He called me names. He tried to pull us back into the loud room. Evan took the post down from his own page. He blocked Ty. He called me and said, I want to do a small thing instead of a big thing. I said, do it. He said, can you come? I said, I will stand in the back. Saturday, he put a table outside the store with a hand-painted sign that said, Make It Right sale. He did not give things away. He did not beg. He sold at a fair price and gave a small discount to folks we knew by name. He put a jar on the table that said, Vendor Fund. He didn't push it. He just left it there. People dropped bills and coins like seeds in spring. Ty drove by twice. Slow. He didn't stop. He filmed from the car and posted a story with a song that mocked us. We did not answer. We sold a box of nails to a man who needed to fix his porch. We sold a bundle of rope to a woman who wanted to tie up a swing for her kid. We talked to people about small projects. We didn't talk about empire. At the end of the day, we were tired in the good way. Evan counted the jar with careful fingers. He wrote down the number and taped it to the glass. He said, Transparency, and smiled in that quiet way I like. Kayla hugged me. Not long. Enough. She said, He slept last night. Good, I said. Sunday, I stayed home. I fixed a hinge. I oiled a lock. I baked bread that came out ugly and perfect, and filled the house with a smell that grabbed your sleeve. I stood in the doorway with a slice in my hand and butter melting down my fingers, and felt peace like a blanket you forgot you owned. Then, Monday hit with a fist. A letter came from a sponsor who had promised Evan a small feature in a magazine. They wanted louder. They wanted slick. They did not want shelves and rope and truth. They pulled out. Evan called me and said we lost it. His voice didn't crack this time. It went flat, like the drummer's stick when he hits the edge of a cymbal without meaning to. Okay, I said. That's all you say? It is a small thing, I said. Losing a false light makes room for a window. He laughed without joy. You and your sayings, he said, but he sounded better when he said it. That afternoon, I found Ty's face on my phone again. He had posted a clip from the party of Evan on the chair saying, Out with the old. He'd added a caption. He meant it. He tagged the store. He tagged the street. He tagged the world. I went to the store. Evan was pale. Kayla was angry in that cold way that can cut. I'll report it, Evan said. Again, he'll just post another. Let him, I said. You don't care? I care about shelves, I said. I care about rent. I care about the jar. I care about the man ringing the bell next. As if on cue, the bell chimed and a man in work boots with paint on his fingers walked in and bought 3 rolls of tape and a bag of screws. He had no idea who Ty was. He cared about the way the tape stuck and whether the screws would strip. Evan sold him what he needed and said, Thank you, Pete. And the man said, See you, EV, and that was the whole song. The week turned. The small things stayed steady. The big things tried to push and failed. That is how most lives change. Not with a bang, with a long list of plain lines. Then the next humiliation came, not from Ty, not from a stranger, from Evan himself, in the old way he used to choose when he got scared. A customer asked, You build this all by yourself? It was a simple question, said without malice, said the way men ask other men about trucks. Evan opened his mouth. I watched him choose. He said yes. It was soft. It was quick. It was a small lie told to save a face that didn't need saving anymore. It was a reflex. That was the worst part. He met my eyes after the word left. He closed his mouth. He turned to the customer and said, No, not by myself. And the customer nodded, like a man hearing a weather report he already knew. He paid. He left. Evan looked at me and shook his head at himself. Old habit, he said. I know, I said. He put both hands on the counter and leaned. His fingers left small prints in the dust and then wiped them away. I feel like I'm holding 2 ropes, he said. One tied to him and one tied to you. My arms are tired. Drop his, I said. He straightened. as if it had never occurred to him that you can let go of a rope that hurts your hands. He took his phone and blocked 3 more accounts with Ty's face. He took a flyer with Ty's brand from under the counter and tore it in half and threw it away. He took a deep breath and let it out in a long line. He looked lighter by 1 shade. That night, he came by my house with Kayla. They brought ice cream in a cold tub and 3 spoons. We ate from the tub like people who didn't need to show manners to each other. He said, "I'm sorry," again, not to perform, but to place a brick on a road. He asked me to teach him how to track money in a small notebook, pen and paper, not apps. We sat at the table, and he wrote the date in the top right corner and the word "start" in neat letters. It looked good there. The next morning he called and said, "Ty is outside. He has 2 people with him. He's shouting." I said, "I'm coming." He said, "No, I will stand." I went anyway, but slow. I stayed across the street. Ty stood red-faced by the door. He shouted words about freedom and control that turned to spit at the corners of his mouth. Evan stood in the doorway with 1 hand on the frame and 1 hand up, palm out. He said nothing. He didn't move. He didn't blink. Kayla stood behind him with the phone in her hand, not filming, just ready. The landlord appeared like a man in a play who always hits his mark. He didn't shout. He lifted 1 finger and pointed down the sidewalk. Ty looked at him, then at Evan, then at me across the street. He made a small sound a child makes when you take a toy and say, "Not yours." He left. His tires didn't squeal this time. He just went. Evan looked at me and finally let his mouth find a small, real curve. He didn't wave. He didn't need to. He went back inside. By Friday, the vendor jar had 3 slips of paper under the bills, notes. One said, "For making it right." One said, "For the way you treated my wife last year, thanks for the fix today." One said, "For your dad." Evan showed me the 3rd note without speaking. He put it back under the jar with care. He started a new habit. At the end of each day, he took a dry cloth and wiped the counter in slow circles until it shone. He clicked the pen and wrote 3 lines in the small notebook. He checked the lock twice. He turned off the lights and stood in the doorway for 1 breath before stepping into the night. If you have ever tried to live better, you know how hard that breath can be. 2 weeks later, Ty posted a long, messy story with photos of other rooms and other people and no mention of ours. Loud men move to new stages when the old one stops giving them what they want. Good, let him. Humiliation shrank, not gone, shrunk. The room that had laughed found something else to do with its mouth. But money is slow, and the past is slower. The sponsor that left pulled a second one with it, like a nail pulling another when you pry a board. Rent came due again. Sales were steady, but not enough. Evan called me one night and said, "I might not make next month." "I know," I said. He was quiet. "What do I do?" "You call every person you owe and say, 'I need time.' You don't hide. You don't promise what you can't do. You say thank you whether they are kind or not." He did. Some were kind, some were not. A man used the word loser. Evan didn't answer back. He took the word, left it on the ground, and kept walking. Then came the call I had been waiting for since the party. A simple call, a simple voice. The bank lady with pale blue nails. "Mr. Reed," she said. "We saw a charge attempt from a club at 1:12 a.m. It's on the line tied to the shop. Do you want to allow it?" I closed my eyes and saw Ty's grin. I saw Evan's tired face. I saw the jar on the counter with bills folded like small birds. "No," I said. "And please call the shop and tell the owner that the line now needs his voice to open. No one else. Not friends, not me, only him." "Done," she said. I hung up and sat at the table with my hands on the wood and my head bent. I did not feel triumphant. I felt like a man holding a door shut while wind pressed on the other side. You can do that for a while, not forever. The next morning, Evan came by at sunrise. He looked like he had slept 2 hours. He sat on my step and held his head in his hands. He tried to use it, he said. "I know," I said. He dropped his hands and looked straight at me. "Thank you," he said, For the box, for the line, for the jar, for the wall, for the call, for all the quiet things. "You're welcome," I said. He laughed, a small puff of air. "You sound like a teacher," he said. "I'm a father," I said. He nodded. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his own small card. He had started to write them too. He handed it to me. It said, "Don't lie today. Don't laugh at what hurts. Don't let noise drive." It was in his neat block letters. It made me want to stand a little taller. He went to the shop. I watched him cross the street with a gait I hadn't seen in a while. It wasn't big. It was steady. That afternoon, the venue manager from the party stopped by the store to buy rope. She saw me and smiled and said, "I like the shelves now." She paid cash. She said, "I saved the clip in case you ever need it." I said, "Keep it. Thank you." She nodded. "Sometimes the room needs to see itself," she said. "Sometimes it doesn't." The street fair photo was still on the counter. 2 hands, tape, a broken mailbox. It was perfect. It was nothing. It was everything. Outside, a wind picked up and made the leaves on the elm behind my house whisper like old friends. The fridge hummed. Somewhere a dog barked twice and then decided it was not worth it and stopped. The house held. The next morning, Evan called and said, "Can you come by? Early." I said, "I'm already on my way." When I got there, he had 3 envelopes on the counter, 1 for the landlord, 1 for the vendor who had called me first, 1 with my name. He slid the 3rd toward me. It was heavy. I didn't pick it up. "Open it," he said. "Later," I said, "when it's quiet." He smiled. He knew what that meant now. He put it back under the counter. He rang up a small sale for a woman buying sandpaper and said, "Have a good day," like he was handing her a small gift that didn't need wrapping. We worked the whole morning without talking about Ty or the party or the jar. We talked about a loose hinge on the door and whether the sign should hang a little lower so short folks could see it without craning their necks. We moved a stack of paint trays from the floor to a lower shelf. We made room for a bin of screws that had been hidden behind too much sparkle. People came in and out. People bought what they needed and said thank you and left. At noon, Kayla brought sandwiches. We ate standing up. We wiped our hands on napkins, not shirts. We didn't plan a brand. We planned to keep the door open. Before I left, I put my hand on the counter where his had been and felt the faint tack from the cleaner. "You're doing it," I said. He nodded. "I am," he said. Outside, the sun pushed the shadows to the far side of the street. The air smelled like cut grass from a yard 2 blocks over. I put my hands in my pockets and walked slow. My keys tapped my thigh. The sound was small and good. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, a link. I didn't click it, I deleted it. I knew whose work it was. I knew what it would say. The wind slid down the street and took the thought with it. At home, I set a pot of water on the stove. It took its time. The surface trembled, then boiled. I turned the flame off and poured. I sat down and let the heat from the mug warm my fingers. The day had been plain and true. The rope held. And under all that plain, steady motion, a small beat kept time. Not anger, not glee, something older, something patient. A beat that said, "Wait, there will be a moment. When it comes, it will be quiet, and when it is quiet, you will open what needs to be opened." I put my cup down. The ring it left on the wood looked like a small moon. The mark would fade. Some don't. I could live with both. The moment came sooner than I expected. 2 mornings later, Evan called. His voice was tight, clipped. "Dad, you should come. He's here again, with friends." I didn't ask who. I already knew. When I reached the shop, 3 men stood outside. Ty was in the middle, waving his arms like a preacher, trying to work the small crowd that had gathered. His phone was up, filming. His voice carried, "This store is mine. He's nothing without me. They'll see it today." Inside, Evan stood behind the counter, pale, but still. Kayla had both hands flat on the wood, as if steadying the whole room. The jar with vendor money sat between them. I walked in without a word. The bell rang sharp. Ty swung the phone toward me. "Here he is! The old man, the ghost, the weight on his son's back." The crowd chuckled nervously, some not sure if they should. I moved past him, straight to the counter. Evan looked at me, then at the box I carried under my arm, the same one from the party, now heavier with what I had added. I set it on the counter. "Open it," I said. He hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside was a stack of papers bound in a neat clip, bank statements, vendor notes, screenshots of Ty's messages bragging about how he controlled Evan, how he stole from the shop, how he would bleed it dry. And on top, one last sheet, the official notice from the landlord, signed yesterday, naming Evan's sole leaseholder, with Ty's name nowhere. Evan's hands trembled as he picked it up. The crowd hushed. Even Ty stopped laughing. Evan's voice was steady when he spoke. "This is mine, not yours." "Not anymore." He turned the paper outward so the crowd could see the landlord's stamp, bold and black. Ty lunged for the box. I shifted one step, and the look in my eyes made him freeze. For the first time, he had no words. Kayla's voice cut through the silence. "Leave, Ty. You don't belong here." And then, as if the air itself agreed, the landlord stepped in through the doorway behind me. He pointed at Ty with one hand that shook no more than stone. "Out, now, or the police come." The weight of the room crushed Ty. His swagger folded. He shoved his phone in his pocket, muttered something nobody caught, and walked out into the daylight. No one followed him. The crowd parted like water around a stone. The door shut. The bell's chime sounded final. Silence filled the store, then a small clap, hesitant at first, from one of the vendors who had come to see. Another joined. And another. Soon the room rang not with laughter at an old man's expense, but with applause for a son finally standing on his own feet. Evan looked at me. His eyes were wet, but his voice didn't shake. "Thank you for the gift." I nodded once. "It was yours to open." The crowd trickled out. Kayla wiped the counter. Evan stood straighter than I had seen in years. I picked up the empty box, tucked it under my arm, and walked toward the door. Behind me, the store was quiet, honest, whole. Outside, the street was still. The sun touched the glass, and for the first time in a long time, it felt warm. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe and join Taste of Revenge family, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on one of the boxes on the right. Thank you for watching to the end.